And hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie review podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris. And again, welcome to a very special edition of the Story to Screen as we conduct our Batman v Superman specials with Batman Begins. We're doing an audio commentary for the first part in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, which consists of Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, and eventually Man of Steel. Also, we'll be doing two roundtable discussions on Superman the movie from 1978, the classic Christopher Reeve Superman movie, and Tim Burton's Batman from 1989. I'm really looking forward to this series. So in order to join our commentary, make sure you have either the Blu-ray or DVD edition of Batman Begins. When you join our commentary, make sure you are on 00 minutes and 00 seconds. And once I go through the countdown of 1, 2, 3, and once I say hit play, that's when you hit play on your DVD or Blu-ray. Sit back and enjoy.
Tell us, Mr. Wayne. What do you fear?
How do you know my name?
The world is too small for someone like Bruce Wayne to disappear.
Your parents' death was not your fault.
My parents deserve justice.
I cannot let that pass. If you make yourself more than just a man, then you become something else entirely.
Which is?
A legend, Mr. Wayne.
Marshal Wayne, are you coming back for long, sir?
As long as it takes to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt.
Bruce?
Rachel?
You were gone a long time.
I know.
Things are worse than ever down here. What chance does Gotham have when the good people do nothing?
Nomex survival suit for advanced infantry. Kevlar utility harness, gas-powered magnetic grapple gun.
What's that?
You want the tumbler? Well, you wouldn't be interested in that.
I spent a lot of time being scared for you. I heard you were back. But the man I loved, the man who vanished, never came back.
He's here. Who? The Batman.
Gotham must be destroyed.
Gotham isn't beyond saving.
Just hold on.
Guy dresses up like a bat. Clearly has issues.
3, 2, 1, hit play. And we're off!
Hooray! It's my favorite part of the film.
The only
Warner
good part of the
Brothers
film,
Pictures.
so...
Yeah.
I miss that DC Comics logo.
Mm-hmm.
They replaced it with that really weird one that they've kind of been using recently. I don't like that one.
I think they wanted to differentiate themselves from Marvel because it was very much like Marvel. Just in the way it kind of settled in the screen and all that. It was very similar to Marvel, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just wanted to differentiate themselves from it.
Well, this was 2005. I mean, so Marvel's Cinematic Universe hadn't even begun yet, and you had...
Oh, yeah.
Only had...
I'm sure Marvel stole from DC, and DC just hasn't had anything good enough that would enable them to overcome that quite yet. So,
but now I'm not gonna lie. I think this kid that they got to play the young Christian Bale Bruce Wayne, I don't see the resemblance at all.
Yeah, I mean it's little freckled face and I maybe not the greatest pick and maybe not really the greatest actor either, but
I think he's fine. When I look at Christian Bale, I mean, when you see Christian Bale as a young kid, he still has that, as we go, he has that same exact face, even as a little kid.
Yeah.
You look back at Empire of the Sun, I mean, he had that, just the Christian Bale face, basically, throughout his whole life. Now, let's talk about the narrative structure, because in a way, you're kind of beginning in the middle of the story, in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that, actually, the brief flashback before running into the real meat of it. Of course they have to tackle the origin story because it just hasn't been done extremely well before. But like, I just like I feel like this is a good way to introduce you into who he is at this point.
Yeah, he's not
this is a good way to establish the character, basically.
Yeah, to show him that he's not fully there yet, but he's kind of on the verge of being the fighter that we know, in a way. Yeah, and you get that kind of cool contrast between him being frightened of the bats and then him taking on 12 different people. Was it 12 people in this fight?
Something like that.
7.
Was it 7?
Something. I think so. But
I just grabbed 12 from the air. Okay, 12.
But what do you? Here's the weird thing. I hadn't seen Christian Bale in anything prior to this. Well, with the exception of Little Women. I had seen Little Women. They were on the
not exactly the same thing.
No, but so he was just as new to me as. He was just brand new to me. Like, when I know that he had done, American Psycho and Equilibrium and all that stuff, but that was the only film I had seen him in at that point. And I mean, this is the film. I would say this is the film that made him into a star. Definitely made him into a star.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was fairly well known before this, but yeah, this definitely put him at the forefront.
Yeah. Had you seen him in anything prior to Batman Begins?
The Prestige.
Well, that was after Batman Begins, actually.
That was, yeah. That's right. That's right. I keep forgetting the order of that. I'm looking at IMDb.
Empire of the Sun.
What had I seen before?
Empire of the Sun, American Psycho.
Equilibrium. That's where I saw him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was very good in that.
Oh, I love that movie.
In Equilibrium, he was on the cusp of international fame.
Yeah, he was just on that verge.
And definitely Batman Begins put him right at the forefront.
So Liam Neeson is teaching somebody else. It's taking somebody else under his wing. Liam Neeson is doomed. At least at this point in time in his career, he was just doomed playing father figures and all that stuff. Now he's just the dad seeking revenge on terrorists and all that stuff. But
I have a special set of skills.
But I actually thought that Liam Neeson gives, in my opinion, I think he gives the most underrated performance in this entire trilogy. I would say, because people talk about Tom Hardy and Heath Ledger, but I think Liam Neeson, in my opinion, is the second best villain in this trilogy, or as we come to later know on that he's Ra's al Ghul, but
yeah. I mean, he does a good job of really stepping into the character. I mean, it's Liam Neeson, of course, but he does a great job of just really stepping into the character and just owning that character.
He does. He honestly, this character, the screen time of the character is very, very minimal, but with what he does with it, I mean, it's pretty impactful nonetheless. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look into his eyes and you see like just crazy intensity, and it's hard for your average actor to really capture that in just their face.
Yeah. This is a beautiful location, and that scene with the flags, that was like honestly like one of the first scenes that they actually revealed in the trailers. Like that was like the first thing that would ever pop up, and that really just captured my imagination of this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful shot, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's unique. Like you said, it captures your attention, and it really pulls you in just with the aesthetic of it. Adds a little bit of mystery to it.
Yeah. Well, but the fact that it's also like snow and all that stuff kind of symbolizes that idea that this is not just a cold climate, but a cold cult in a weird way. Like the mentality is cold here. Like everyone is afraid, or everyone fears, or everyone just a sense of just fear. Like that's the thing that. That's what Christopher Nolan as a director is, a very, metaphoric, and his ideas, represent the stuff that's going on the screen,
And you've got the notion, the saying pure as the driven snow, but you notice you never see pure snow in any of these shots. There's always some kind of darkness, whether it's mountainside or a building underneath. And it kind of, it's kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Symbolic.
It's a foreshadowing. There we go. It's a foreshadowing of what's to come. And typical Nolan, it's a brilliant way to use cinematography and that mise en scene aspect of filmmaking.
Now, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw, when I saw the pictures of Liam Neeson's character, I kind of knew who he was, because it's like, wait a minute, I've seen that beard and that goatee before on the Batman the Animated Series, so I kind of had a feeling on who he was playing. Like, had you seen, like, prior to this, did you know who Ra's al Ghul as a character was, like in the TV show at least, or maybe in the comics?
I really had never watched the TV show or seen much of the comics, so needless to say, the character of Ra's al Ghul kind of took me by surprise.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure what to expect. So, at this point, when I was watching the film, I was thinking, "Oh, Liam Neeson, he's another henchman," and that obviously turns out not to be the case.
No, it's a pretty good twist, but I kind of, for how old was I? Like 13 years old. I was like, okay, I see where this is going. I see. So, but
well, apparently, the word or the phrase Ra's al Ghul is Arabic for the demon's head.
Yeah.
So if you looked it up, it'd be pretty obvious. But
they kept his character's name like a secret. He was going under the name of Henry Ducard. That was it. Yeah, they didn't reveal anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, but did you see this in theaters when it first came out, or?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't. I saw it. I saw it much later on DVD actually.
Yeah, no, it was quite the experience in the theaters.
I'm sure it was. The thing was that my dad and I had the choice between this and Star Wars Episode 3, and we're like, let's go see Star Wars again. So
whatever works, right? Yeah, again, we go back here to his childhood, and while it kind of seems sudden, it's just kind of saying, here's where he's at in life, and then let's go back and examine what influences his decision to do this.
Oh yeah.
And it's again, it's just Christopher Nolan at his finest up until the next film.
Yeah, he took it up to Inception, I think, is his masterpiece, but
Oh, Inception was just fantastic.
yeah. This movie, I think does a pretty good job, at least for the time that it has. I think it does a pretty good job of exploring kind of the relationship between him and his father. In some, it doesn't do a whole lot with it, as opposed to more like he kind of feeds him like the ideas and knowledge of like, don't be afraid. Like at that point in time when he's dying, he says, don't be afraid, that type of stuff. So,
well, this also that transition is also kind of establishes Ra's al Ghul, or
the father figures in a way in Bruce Wayne's life.
Kind of taking a father figure.
This movie is, in my opinion, like somewhat thematically about father figures in Bruce Wayne's life. The good one, the bad one, the one that raised him, the one that nourished him in some interesting ways.
Absolutely.
You know what? We never see this train again in the next two films, actually.
Don't we though?
No. It's funny when looking at that little design of the trains. It is the most of the three films. It actually that's the most comic booky. It kind of feels like, it's going over the top in terms of architectural designs.
Mm-hmm.
But this one kind of really has that more comic booky feel to it as opposed to the other two, in my opinion, at least. Don't go out into the alleyway. Just go out through the front.
Don't go out into the dark.
Yeah, like, look at that. I mean, why would anybody in their right mind just... So this is, it is his dad's fault for taking the wrong door out the building, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, I haven't exactly been to the opera lately, but maybe it's just a way to get out without bothering anybody else. But this particular take on the whole parents dying thing, I kind of like this in that it doesn't dwell on it like forever. Like anytime the origin story is brought up of any superhero, all of a sudden it's like, well, let's look at every aspect of it from every possible angle. And right here, it's just like, here, boom, we're done.
The deaths are quite quick. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They're not. It's kind of a subtle nod to what we're doing here. It's Christopher Nolan saying, "Look, we know you're familiar with this, but we're going to get it out of the way real quick."
But I don't think I wouldn't say it that way. I think he was because the only time that you had seen it in the live action was the Batman 89, and that movie kind of handles it in a unique way. Here, you feel a little bit more panicky. You're because now you're seeing this little boy. I think because you've seen some stuff with this little boy and seeing how he reacts to fear, and to kind of see this particular moment, happen in his life. I think it works in some way because you got to see a little bit of Bruce Wayne's early life, prior to the murders. And so to kind of see how this little boy reacts to it is kind of I think you buy the trauma. I think you buy into that a lot more.
Yeah. And Christopher Nolan one of his many strengths is that he is a very efficient filmmaker. He doesn't waste any frames on unnecessary sidebars or anything like that. So this whole thing is just like, look, here's the story, here's what happens. We don't need to take forever to dwell on this, and we're not going to randomly shoot some flowers on the side of the road just because, whatever. But, it's just like, here's the origin story. and we're gonna get on to the rest of the action. It's like you know how we're going with this, and you know the story. So here you go.
That shot of him is just gorgeous, right there. Of him just standing in front of the window, right there. That's a beautiful shot.
Oh yes.
I can't help.
Welcome, Eddie.
Alfie. Alfie.
We're Alfie. Yeah. Just if you're just joining us, we are at 16 minutes and 30 seconds into Batman Begins.
There you go. Michael Caine, like that man is just absolutely amazing in everything he does. I mean, it's actually weird watching him right now. He's got a full set of hair, and when in the subsequent films he kind of loses it. He actually looks quite young. Well, obviously this was shot years before, but you look at him later on in the film. They kind of look like they've aged him up a lot more. But we got to talk about this part right here. The training sequence. This is a great set of editing and just what they do. Going back and forth in terms of the training.
Yeah, it's not your typical training montage.
I would say no, because specifically like in Spider-Man, because you saw these kind of these random cuts of going back and forth, in terms of the building up of the hero. Here it's done, but it's definitely doing it in a unique way. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. All distractions.
I'm looking at Christian Bale's face, and he's got amazing hair, and he looks just great. Like, I'm looking at him, and I'm buying into his internal struggle, and I look at like the trailers with Ben Affleck and all that stuff, and I'm like, Ben, you have. Like, when you're trying to convey inner struggle, Ben, you look like a drunk. Here, Bale is just, you sense it. You sense the turmoil within.
Well, as an actor, that is most definitely one of his great strengths. You see it in Equilibrium.
Yeah.
In The Prestige, and just about any film he's done, like, his ability to convey this inner struggle that leads him to the climax of each film is quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, that's just a very rare gift that honestly Affleck has a lot to live up to. I mean, he just has so much. He has so much to prove. I mean, I don't think he's going to be as good as Bale, but
I don't think anybody else thinks he's going to be as good as Christian Bale.
No. Upper hand? Nada.
I fooled you.
This.
And that would suck.
Falling into cold water and all that.
Not just cold water, like freezing
water. Now this is another good scene. I really like this scene right here because Liam Neeson is just, again, it's just kind of showcasing the past, and I love how he just that there's a relation that they're very, very similar to one another. I lost my wife. And let me ask you this, Ian, because he says here, the poison, what is it? Is anger or rage, is poison in your veins, and you wish that the one that you loved most had never existed. Looking back at what we know in Rises, do you think Talia was a person that fueled those things in him, maybe, or do you think those were just painful? Do you think Talia in some way was a painful reminder of his pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
I'd say that's probably a pretty good theory, at least, because probably brings back all those old memories and the pain and agony of dealing with losing loved ones and almost losing loved ones, and
yeah, kind of knowing where this. Do you think Talia? Yeah, well, we'll talk about Talia another time because that's a character I have a lot of issues with. Well, there's actually one scene later on in this movie that I want to point out too. Look at that! They were able to make Christian Bale look so much younger just by combing his hair to the side.
It's amazing what you can do with just combing the hair over.
Combing the hair over.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, like.
This movie's structure reminds me so much of Citizen Kane. Like that was the movie that I was thinking of when I've watched this movie so many times. You're going back and forth, and you're kind of getting a sense of the younger Citizen Kane, Charles Foster Kane, and then you're seeing then the younger, and then the older, back and forth, middle aged.
Oh yeah, it's you'd be hard pressed to find any film that isn't paying some sort of homage to Citizen Kane.
In a weird way. Well, Bruce Wayne is kind of Howard Hughes, and then you can kind of say that Howard Hughes kind of came from the whole idea of, Citizen Kane or something like that, or Citizen Kane was inspired somewhat by Howard Hughes and all that stuff, but now, does he have that mole on the side of his nose there?
I don't know.
He has this weird mole he's had this weird mole on the side of his nose that has just developed over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like here is where we're seeing the transition in the character. We're seeing kind of the middle road of Bruce Wayne becoming Batman, and we just saw the kind of training montage and of Liam Neeson's character kind of becoming the father figure, and Bruce Wayne is resisting. And here we're seeing him still kind of recover from losing a father figure.
Yeah, he still hasn't gotten over it. It's something that still, I see that as something that purely motivates him throughout everything. That was something about this trilogy that I was kind of sad that the subsequent films didn't really address. Is he still motivated by that night, by that image of seeing his mother and father dying or being killed in front of him? And that's something that this trilogy kind of loses to some degree.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, especially with Dark Knight Rises, but I think it's still kind of an undercurrent there, especially with the next film.
Well, it's not really by film 2. It's gone. It's out the window.
No, I think it's still there in The Dark Knight. I think it's still there. It's kind of an undercurrent. Might be just kind of an understood undercurrent, but it's still there. Because this is a huge part of the Batman character, and if you're familiar at all with the Batman character, then you understand what his whole motivation is behind this.
Sure.
So you still have that his real father still kind of there in the shadows. Yeah, I'd say Dark Knight Rises, it's not really there so much, and obviously there's some issues with that film.
Yeah.
The second one in the trilogy, I feel like it's still there. There's still plenty of stuff to point him back and point the audience back to his relationship with his father.
Yeah. Now the one thing about this movie, well, specifically with this movie, is that because people really, with the other two, people really seem to cite all the real world issues, social, terrorism and social injustice. But people tend to forget that this one has some pretty deep themes and ideas about social issues, especially within the justice system. Because this one's showing, the criminals, what is it? The justice system making deals with criminals. And
Oh yeah, I mean, this is another part that really affects him becoming Batman. Like, he wouldn't be Batman without a really corrupt criminal justice system.
Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't be the hero that Gotham needs without there being a corrupt justice system.
Yeah.
So, you know, that brief look at how it all works kind of helps the audience get into that mode of, oh, okay, this is why.
Now, we've not talked about Katie Holmes. Are you a yay or naysayer on her performance in this film? I mean,
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of on the fence about it. You know, I mean, for who she is, maybe a little overwrought, but I feel like she played out the character fairly well.
Okay. I mean, you can definitely tell that she's just outgunned by the stronger actors in this movie. I mean, let's be kind of honest. I mean, well, her scenes with Bale, I mean, Bale is just superior over her. And Katie Holmes, I don't know what it is. I just feel like I'm just looking at a child as opposed to believing that I'm looking at a woman. You know, like, I can't believe that at this point in time. I mean, you know, Reese Witherspoon, Rachel McAdams, Rachel Weisz. I mean, don't tell me you couldn't have gotten one of those other actresses. I've heard that this was that Warner Brothers enforced this casting on Nolan, that he had to, which I don't know how much I buy into that, but
I mean, there's not a lot that you can do when your production company is forcing someone on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd really just have to watch it again because it was a bit of a shock when Maggie Gyllenhaal came in, but she did a fantastic job.
Oh, she did a superior job to Katie Holmes.
So compared to her, yeah, Katie Holmes is definitely out of her league. And you look at her, you just automatically think Dawson's Creek.
Have you seen Dawson's Creek?
I've seen bits and pieces, and it's exactly what you would think it is.
Okay, good. I'm not watching it.
Just that typical late 90s, early 2000s overwrought teenage drama kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think she's she's still kind of in that mode in this film.
Yeah. She has been. I would say she still has been because I'm not. But anyway.
I mean, she's not the worst actress ever, but
you don't get her for something like this. But let's talk about Tom Wilkinson. I love Tom Wilkinson as an actor, and I thought his Carmine Falcone is just great. I'm so sad that they couldn't use him in the other two films, at least in like cameos or something like that. But
yeah.
I love his. People honestly crap on his kind of Italian, mafia accent type Brooklyn accent. I actually kind of like it. I mean, he's really good at that accent, but
yeah. No, I love Tom Wilkinson too. I think every movie he's in, he adds a real bit of like mafioso like feel to it, and it's just like, oh yeah. What's interesting, a bit of trivia that popped up. Since this came up immediately after The Machinist, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I know about that part. Yeah.
Yeah, Christian Bale, quote, was vastly underweight when he's under consideration for Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And he was told to get, quote, as big as you could be by Christopher Nolan. And 6 months later, they told him he was too big.
Yeah. Yeah. I know about that story, right?
That's crazy.
That is crazy. That just shows you his commitment in terms of just like physically pushing himself. But what I like right here, in that particular moment was, when Falcone tells him, you're privileged, you've never tasted, desperate, you don't know what it means to be a criminal or what drives a criminal. Criminals, that's interesting because, when you look at, that's what I like about this film is that it's kind of bring these real social issues, what makes a criminal, what makes him, what makes somebody go into a crime, turn to crime, it's because of the circumstances that they're in, bad parenting, bad homes, so many things that you can think of.
Well, I mean, from a Christian perspective.
Let's bring a little bit of that in here.
You've got the whole man is inherently sinful thing, the heart is deceitfully wicked, who can understand it? So coming into it from that perspective, it's it is a lasting question. Why would someone do this? Take a life like this that is obviously detrimental. And really, it just comes down to power,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the, I love that part.
Yeah.
You look at some of the biggest serial killers and criminals of all time, and some of them had just perfectly great home lives. Middle class families whose parents, spanked them growing up and all that stuff, and then they just turned out to be just psychopaths. And it's like, I don't know if it's, you got the whole nature over nurture. I think it's just simple human nature.
Yeah. It's the heart of man. I mean, basically, it's the heart of man and his unwillingness to surrender, to surrender itself to a higher authority. In this case. But
we want power over our fellow man.
Yes.
So we can be. It goes back to the old. We want to be more like God.
Yes.
And that really plays into Ra's al Ghul as well.
Yeah, because I want to talk about his motivation real quickly because Ra's al Ghul, he has the League of Shadows, and that's why I think that's why they have, I think in my opinion, like the second best like villain type of motivation in this trilogy, next to the Joker's, because in a way they're out for more than just conquest. It's almost like in a way their motivations are in a way kind of spiritual spiritual in the sense that they want to redeem like the souls of, or they want to wipe out the evil of mankind and then start anew.
Yeah.
I mean, in that, the murder, I mean, the tactics of which you're using are wrong, but the cause is noble. Just the actions themselves are not admirable, if that makes any sense.
Well, it justifies the mean kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The means. They want to play God by being judge, jury, and executioner.
And that's the part that Batman won't dabble in. He's not going to be the executioner or the judge, jury. He believes that it has to be through the justice system. But here's the cool part, which I like, is that Ra's al Ghul brings up the fact that should men be tried by corrupt bureaucrats? Criminals mock society's laws. And that is in a way, very true. It's very true in society nowadays. And it's been true since the foundation of time.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like the villain motivations, I mean, where would you kind of rank the League of Shadow motivation? Do you rank it like beneath the Ledger, the Joker's motivation?
That's a very good question. I don't know. It's up there for sure. Maybe they're on par with each other.
Yeah. I do think this is a far better motivation than any of the, well, maybe with the exception of the Winter Soldier, but I do think this is probably the best developed motivation in any superhero movie by the villains, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And the fact that this plays so heavily into the development of Batman as a superhero, because the Joker comes in later and kind of screws everything up, and League of Shadows steps in, tries to makes themselves out to be like this really altruistic group with these fantastic motives.
mm-hmm.
And then this part creeps up. And it's like, oh, well, maybe they're not as great as...
They're not as pure heart. Well, not pure-hearted, but maybe just they're not as nobly motivated as we thought they were, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is kind of the crucial moment in which he loses another father figure for the sake of what is good and right.
Mm-hmm. Again, I just look into Christian Bale's face, and I'm just saying, Ben, you got. Sorry, Ben. I just buy it. I just buy it. That
yeah.
You just buy his acting.
Mm-hmm.
And can't one knob.
Yeah.
What a little fantastic little cameo from this guy right here. Just for seeing that little bits of like those little strands of hair coming out of the side of his jaw right there. That's kind of a little weird. I don't know. Gotham must be destroyed.
I mean, if that look doesn't spell out, hey, I'm psycho. I don't know what does.
But no, I like how in this, as we kind of talked about, this is the scene where he has to choose between, becoming, what I believe is right, as opposed to the ideals of these groups of terrorists. I mean, and that's what essentially the League of Shadow are. They're terrorists. They're like, they're like ISIS, or I would even say they're kind of like an early idea of the ISIS group in a lot of ways. They strike like rattlesnakes. They have this they come out of the shadows and unexpected.
Did you notice the sword he's holding is squared off?
No, I didn't.
It's not sharp at all.
Oh,
whoops. Yeah, I guess in a way there can be a comparison made between ISIS and League of Shadows. In that their motivation is, well, religious in many ways.
Yes. I'm just going to say right now, Bruce Wayne, you're going to have to pay for a lot of... This is the first of many bits of property damage.
But, it's up in the middle of Tibetan mountains, so...
Yeah, so where there's no taxes or anything like that. I do like this fight scene a lot. This is pretty rad right here.
Oh, yeah. This is cool. I like this scene.
Now, have you ever had a problem with like the editing in these action scenes right here? Because a lot of people say like, a lot of like film enthusiasts who look at the editing, they kind of say like, well, there's a lot of inconsistency if you notice, because in this shot right here, so-and-so is positioned this way. When this cuts right over here, it's in a different angle. I mean, have you ever had those type of problems with the action?
Honestly, I try not to think about it too much, because it is incredibly hard to edit a scene like this, because you're taking, probably 100 different takes and trying to piece them into a 2-minute long scene. So you're not going to get it perfect. And, to get all nitpicky about this garbage is just like, it's a waste of time. It's like, okay, maybe the angle wasn't perfect. Maybe he wasn't where it was exactly, but come on. Let's let's be realistic here.
And then speaking of realistic, well, Bruce Wayne's arm would have ripped off at this particular moment. You know, his arm. So what? It's a great scene.
I mean, it's a cool scene. Yeah,
it's a great scene.
Goodness. The day we expect movies to be realistic is the day we're all watching documentaries.
But even documentaries have kind of cheated.
Documentaries aren't always realistic.
Yeah,
either.
maybe, yeah. No, it's funny when watching this scene, you know, he tells him, I will tell him you saved his life. Later on, he kind of says, you burned my house and you left me for dead. Did he not know? Even as a kid, you know, like, well, wait a minute, did he not know? Did Roz ever know that Bruce saved his life? And so,
you know,
and
who needs rationality, anyways?
Do you think if he had known that Bruce had saved his life, do you think that would have changed his mind, possibly, or no? He was motivated whether he saved his life or not.
I think when something like that happens, when your headquarters of your whole League of Shadows gets destroyed, you want to find someone to blame, and you're not going to do it yourself. You're not going to blame yourself. So Bruce Wayne is obviously the next best option. So
I just want to comment on this scene right here. Like the whole idea of Batman, like that moment right there, like when Christian Bale when he paused right there, you know, as a man, you know, I can be flesh and blood, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, he pauses. He gives that lingering look of like something is just creeping into my mind right there, and that is, you know, and he says, you know, a symbol. It's a symbol that's beginning to creep into his mind. One, that's a great scene, but that's the fundamental platform of which Batman is coming from. You know, he's a symbol. You know, I know you've said you've never read. I know you said you've never read like the comics or you've never seen like the animated shows. But what do you think of that idea? I mean, I don't think that idea of Batman as a symbol has ever been explored at all. At least from what I've been exposed to.
Well, I think it's touched on in the later films, and from what I know, I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of an underlying aspect of his character that, you know, in a way, unlike Spider-Man or Superman, Batman isn't just a force for justice. He's a symbol for justice in an incredibly corrupt city. And he's that symbol that people look to for hope, essentially.
And did you hear that this guy was originally supposed to be Harvey Dent in one of the earlier scripts right here?
Really?
Yeah. Christopher Nolan was like, we're just going to focus on one film at a time, which, okay, I can buy into that, but I think you kind of miss an opportunity of kind of setting up, you know, a character that eventually has a bigger payoff, and I would even say an emotional payoff in the second film.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, coming from a director's perspective, it's hard to plan on setting something like that up, because I'm sure at this point, you know, when it came out, they were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do two more or not. So I doubt he wanted to waste much time dwelling on that character, and wanted to focus instead on this story. Because I think that would have probably been a mistake to dwell too much on that character and or bring that into story, and it'd be a distraction from everything else.
It'd feel more like an Easter egg, maybe, just that more sequel setup than anything else.
Yeah, maybe. You know, that might have worked, but
by the way, that image of him walking down the steps from Wayne Manor, that was actually, I kid you not, that was actually like the very first photographic image I ever saw from this movie. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, they actually, what was it, that Disney Adventure magazine? And they actually had a special Batman Begins cover on it, and one of the pictures inside was a still of Christian Bale walking away from Wayne Manor, that very same still, and that was my first exposure ever to this film. And that was awesome. That was just awesome. And I just bought it right there. You know, like, okay, I could see this guy being Bruce Wayne. Let's see the Batsuit. But now this is, in my opinion, one of the best scenes in this entire trilogy. It's almost it's just almost spiritual right here in this moment right here.
I mean, this part right here is essentially the birth of Batman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just beautiful. It's just so haunting, and Hans Zimmer's music going on there at this. Oh man. I honestly missed the more stuff like the bats and all that stuff in the sequels. That was the kind of I missed that trope in the other ones. Cillian Murphy. I love Cillian Murphy.
Dude, he is fantastic.
This movie again. This was another movie that really put him on the map, essentially, and like he is just like one of those just a chameleon who just disappears in every role he does, and like he honestly makes great films great, and he makes bad films watchable.
Yeah, because not only is he a fantastic actor, he's got that very unique facial structure that makes him stand out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw the series Peaky Blinders.
I have not. I've heard great things. Is he great in that show?
Oh goodness, it is so good. Like it is ridiculous how good he is. He like everything else, he really steps into that character and lives that character. And you believe that he's that character. And, you know, he really took what he did in Batman Begins into everything else he's done.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, he's a welcome sight. Like, every time that people see him, like, in movies, like, even in a movie like In Time with Justin Timberlake, he's still I'm like, oh, great, it's Cillian Murphy. I want to see this movie, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this is another character that I actually am kind of sad that they never used him again in the other two films, because he's kind of the, you know, that kind of Enterprise antagonist, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I honestly, in the sequels, you know, you had Coleman Reese and you had, what is his name, Roland Daggett in the next two films, and I actually always kind of thought that they could have actually used Rutger Hauer's character in those scenes, or in those particular moments. That kind of a missed opportunity, but
yeah.
He's also in Blade Runner. You remember him from Blade Runner? He was. Oh gosh, what is the name of his character? He was kind of the bad guy, the bad guy replicant in Blade Runner.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah. He has that. Goodness, probably one of the best soliloquies of all time.
Yeah. Every time we cut, you know, to a new actor, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, it's so and so, you know. Christopher Nolan just did a phenomenal job of just getting the best actors ever. I mean, you got Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman. I mean, you got the
and this movie actually really set off several actors' careers. I mean, even just the secretary from earlier.
Yeah,
she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like you honestly, like, even throughout this trilogy, you will see like a lot of like faces from like other like TV shows or British European films or something like that. There's just so many of them. And that's also something that Christopher Nolan has kind of done, is the using a lot of actors that he's kind of, actors from the 80s and 90s and all that stuff. But now that's actually kind of cool, just kind of seeing the inner workings of the suit, that little piece right there. And I love this whole line, like spelunking.
Spelunking.
Spelunking. Respect.
I love Morgan Freeman's face right there.
It's so
right, whatever.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. And when do you think he knew that Christian Bale or that Bruce Wayne was Batman? Do you think he knew the second time around, or do you think he knew the moment when he went to his house to cure him?
I think once Batman made an appearance, he definitely had an inkling.
Yeah.
Especially right there, spelunking. Really?
Yeah.
I'm not
buying this. I'm not buying.
All right, he's got something going on.
Yeah.
So I imagine when Batman appears with a suit that looks suspiciously like his armor, I imagine that kind of settled it for him.
I'm so sad that they never used this set again in the subsequent films. They did bring it back in Rises, but they never used it in The Dark Knight. So this is kind of like. Now, when I saw the gauntlets, like I loved how they just like the gauntlets. It's like, oh yeah, the Sharpie prints on Batman's gloves and all that stuff. Like even as a kid, because I had seen the television show, and I'm like, oh yeah, you gotta show that. Like, so that's where they come from. They come from the League of Shadows, and and I love I can't take my eyes off of Christian Bale's biceps. I'm sorry. How could you not? I mean, he has this amazing. Man works out. I'm sure his wife liked it. I'm sure his wife really liked it.
He works out. Is that huge? Call him Arnold.
Oh man, and Gary Oldman, what another fantastic!
Oh goodness, another just stellar actor.
He played actually the first film that I actually remember seeing him in. I don't know if you've seen this. Is Air Force One with Harrison Ford.
Oh man, it's been forever since I've seen that.
He played the Russian bad guy in that one.
Oh goodness. It's been forever since I've seen that.
They might be making a sequel, actually, believe it or not.
Hopefully not with Harrison Ford. He's looking old. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The man looks like he can barely stand up without a walker.
Yeah. But the thing with Gary Oldman is that he's another one of those actors that just disappears to every character that he plays, and here the most amazing thing is that he's like spot on comic book Gordon.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can just see the exhaustion and frustration of him just doing his job.
Oh yeah.
It's just that whole feeling of holy cow, another day in which I am the only person fighting the corruption in this place. Like, it just kind of comes, that whole feeling just comes off him in waves. It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I like what's his name again? Ben McKenzie has been doing on Gotham with the role. But Gary just brings that, which was kind of unique from an actor's point of view, is that he was playing the everyman. Because typically in his roles, he was always playing like bad guys or psychopaths or just crazy people.
Yeah.
So here it was just a massive change of pace. Not quite there yet.
Not very graceful right there.
Nah. Which would bring in the capes right there. But now, Mr. Wayne, what is it?
Base jumping.
Here's the funny thing. This Christian Bale has been trained by Zeus from Clash of the Titans. He is now talking to God. Morgan Freeman did play God in, what is it, Bruce Almighty. I don't know if you want to count that. And Alfie. So I think he's pretty good in the father figure.
Yeah. Kind of got that part down.
Yeah. Do you feel like they over explain the how his equipment works or where he gets the equipment? Because a lot of people have kind of said like, well, you kind of take the fun part out of it with you take the fun out of it because then it's like, oh, you're now showing everything how it works. I love this stuff.
No, I'm a fan of this, telling the story this way as well. Like, you're not telling all the nitty gritty stuff of it. It'd get really boring if you went into all the science of how all this stuff worked. But I kind of like seeing how Morgan Freeman's character influences Batman and provides for him in many ways.
Yeah. And the tumbler, baby. Who doesn't like the tumbler?
So cool.
Oh my gosh. It's a big tank, remember?
Do what?
It's a big tank.
Yeah, holy cow, yes.
Oh my gosh. It's just so
I wonder how real that look Christian Bale gave was. Like, holy cow, this is awesome.
I think he did ask Warner Brothers if he could buy one.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
And I think they charged him like, okay, if you want this, it's going to cost you $1 million or something like that. But
well, they do have a few working
prototypes. They do have.
I think Jay Leno got one.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think there's a video on YouTube of Jay Leno driving one.
Oh yeah, it was the tumbler. And And I think they actually had officially like decorated the inside to make it look exactly like the film, because the one that you see like on the set and all that stuff, like the inside, the cockpit, it is a very different look to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that the stunt driver kept it. I do know that. So
that's awesome.
That is, I know. I think
in the meantime, sir, please try to avoid landing on your head.
Yes. I honestly like the Alfred demeanor in this one more so than more so than in Gotham, because in Gotham, I don't know what it is with Sean Pertwee's Alfred. He just comes across as a much more colder demeanor, and here you sense the warmth.
So, yeah, he's got the warmth, and he's a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more of the father figure than in Gotham.
Yeah, I mean, he's good, no doubt about it, Sean Pertwee. But Michael Caine, just again, as we just said, brings so much more, I think, warmth to this role. I think.
Yeah, in Gotham, just with the whole feel of the series, I think it works for that. But that would not work for this film.
No. I think we're like almost at the 90-minute mark, because I think that's when he finally shows up. No, I'm sorry. No, we're actually close to the hour mark.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually thought it was an hour and 90 minutes into this movie. Here's the thing, though. They get you. The writers managed to get you invested in Bruce Wayne's arc, and you're not really feeling like you have to look at your watch and just say, okay, when's Batman showing up? You're invested with his journey throughout this film.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like a drudgery to spend this time with him.
No. Most films, it's like 30 minutes and then origin story, and then boom, he's in the suit. But here, it's about this movie is more about you must buy into the man before you see the fully formed hero in a poetic way, you know. Well, and it's kind of like that journey of that hero, the journey of the hero kind of aspect. You know, you have to see what makes him into this individual, and if you can buy into that all that stuff, then you buy into your character, your lead hero completely.
Mm-hmm.
Now this feels very much like Aliens right here.
It does have a little bit of that feel to it.
Oh yeah, because see, look, he's looking up, and then the thing drops on him.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was an intentional homage.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man.
And this is great. This establishes Batman as not just a character, but a symbol.
But but also just like this just a lethal just threat to the thugs. And I love how now that fear has been turned against these criminals who have, you know, who what's the word I'm looking for? You know, who send fear into the innocent and all that stuff. And now the table has been turned. They don't know what they're dealing with.
It's that mystery of the unknown.
Classic shot.
Where are you? Here.
That's kind of like the reverse of the Spider-Man kissing scene.
Polar opposite.
Polar opposite. They couldn't do Brokeback Mountain on that moment.
Oh goodness. Yeah, let's avoid that.
Yeah. I do think these are probably some of the best edited action scenes in the entire trilogy, because you get the sense of the swiftness, agility of Batman here, and where the other films I think that kind of linger too much on like the clunkiness at times. We'll talk about that when we get into the other films, but I think this one, I think you buy into the intensity.
Well, again, I Nolan is an efficient director, and see if I can bring up IMDb again.
Yeah.
Who edited this?
And by the way, great delivery of "I'm Batman." I mean,
Batman.
How could you not have a Batman movie and have that line? You know, you gotta.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. Oh dear! Now we're dealing with the second Tom Cruise wife in a Batman film. The first one was Nicole Kidman in Batman Forever. Yeah, it's this moment right here that it's just a child. It's just the child in these kind of harsh circumstances. It's like, that's right, you better run. You know, oh my gosh. I mean, it's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very naive character.
Yeah.
Which she really shouldn't be, considering what she does, you know, her character. But yeah, that Lee Smith is the editor of this, and he's done pretty much all of Nolan's films. So, which makes sense. The director and editor have to be on the same page.
I think this is in the three films. I think this is probably the best usage of the Christian Bale Batman voice. It doesn't it doesn't become too growly, which honestly I have never had a problem with the Batman voice. I'm just going to say I have never had a problem with that. I can just kind of sense the difference in this particular one, because it does get a little too growly in the subsequent films, but here I think it's the best used, because he's using both, you know, a growling voice, but also a kind of a normal kind of, you know, he does something kind of similar to what Kevin Conroy did in the animated series, actually. Kind of a monotone type of, you know, voice where he is kind of, doing a little bit of that, a little bit of the growl, but not too much. But
not too much. I'm Batman. This is a pretty cool shot. Right
yeah,
there.
that is real. I don't know if that's Bale. I wouldn't bet the house against it that it wasn't Bale, because he is a daredevil.
Right.
But I hate that guy Flass. It's like such a pig.
Oh yes, which is good. It means the actor's doing his job. Because you're supposed to despise that.
He was actually in Memento, actually, as the what was he? I think it was the hotel clerk. The guy Pierce visits.
He's been in a lot of films.
Yeah,
usually as a scumbag.
Yeah,
I guess he just has that face.
Big question: when you went to go see this film, did you know who Nolan was prior to this, or was this kind of your first kind of exposure to Nolan? It was for me.
I had an idea. As with anyone else, like until they make a really particular impression on my psyche, so to speak, I'm not gonna really care too much.
Mm-hmm.
But Miss, what did he do before this?
He did Memento. Oh, his first one was Following. He did Memento, which put him on the map big time, and then he did Insomnia, which is okay, but it's kind of.
Yeah, I think Memento was what kind of put him in.
Yeah, that movie kind of put him on
front of attention.
Yeah, brought him attention. Batman Begins, I would say, put him on the map, and then The Dark Knight made him into a A-list director, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you hadn't seen Memento or anything like that prior to this film?
No, I saw it before this.
Okay. So you kind of had I'm assuming you probably didn't know that it was him directing this, but at the time. But
yeah, I mean, you watch the film. Memento and this are such completely different films.
Oh, absolutely. Structure maybe, but
Yeah, it's just for the average viewer who doesn't really care, there probably wouldn't be much of a connection.
Yeah. I mean, this was essentially my first exposure to Nolan, and then I saw The Prestige and The Dark Knight and all the subsequent films, and then I kind of went back and I saw Memento and his first three other films kind of later on. But yeah, it's just interesting to see with this specific film how it was just interesting to see like Memento and Insomnia and. Little small, scale kind of thrillers, and yet he gets this massive gig like this. I mean, it's pretty astonishing of that kind of that history record of doing this type of stuff. But now a lot of people say this is like an American Psycho scene. But
well, he definitely dipped into this for dipped into that feel for this part of it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't seem to like his the Playboy Bruce Wayne, because it kind of reminds him too much of Patrick Bateman. But I like it. I do like his the Playboy kind of aspect of his Bruce Wayne. I mean, you know that it's him. You know that he's just putting an act, and you kind of enjoy it. The thing with Affleck, from what I've seen of Affleck's kind of Bruce Wayne Playboy, it's missing charm. There's charm that's missing. He's trying to combine, gruffness with the Playboy image, but it's just not. It's not as good as this right here. It's not as good as this right here.
Yeah. No, this, I feel like I prefer this over other portrayals of the public Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. I do like Michael Keaton's.
You can just see in it, like he's not really, his character isn't really fully into it.
Yeah.
He's just kind of playing along to please the crowd, so to speak.
Yeah.
So he's just more frustrated by the fact that he has to do this part.
Oh yeah, if it was his choice, I think this is kind of more at the insistence. Well, it's a combination of, I think, of both the insistence of Alfred, but also I think kind of what he learned from Roz, kind of giving that
staying in the shadows, hiding in plain sight, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Now this girl, I don't know. Katie Holmes looks like
she's not very convincing in this scene,
but she looks cute. I won't deny that she does look cute, but
well, I mean that's probably 90% of what got her into this film.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But the thing that she looks like a girl that I know, Meredith Netzley. That's what she looks like. Meredith, if you listen to this, it's a compliment. So as long as you don't marry a Tom Cruise lookalike, you're good to go. And this is another great scene right here, by the way. This is where kind of the weak looking kind of assume the mantle of power. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, this is the transfer of power and kind of the introduction of the character of Scarecrow. And you have two extremely good character actors here. And just watching their chemistry between the two.
Oh yeah,
and how their characters interact is just awesome.
Oh yeah. But the thing is that you look at Wilkinson, and then he's a character that believes he has power. He's in control, but he's underestimating. He's underestimating the weak, the people who appear as weak. You know what I mean? In this case, with Cillian Murphy and just the way he says, "Do you want to see my mask?"
Yeah. Oh. He's got that whole look of yeah, whatever, dude. I'm the one that's in control here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's like 5 steps ahead of this guy. Oh man. I do miss the fear gas. Not gonna lie, I do fear them. I do.
Yeah, well, you can't exactly revisit that in every film. But no, that scene was pretty powerful in the theater.
Oh yeah,
it's just kind of oh, holy cow, what's happening here?
Now, how do you feel about the depiction of the relationship between Gordon, Batman, in these films? Well, more specifically in this film. I mean, what do you think of the depiction in this one? Obviously, it's the starting off bridge, but
yeah, it's it's you've got Gordon who's really not sure of what to make of this guy, but understands the need for him. He's been knee deep in this corruption since he can remember. And so here comes a guy. He may look crazy. He may wear a crazy suit.
Theatrics.
He's trying to help.
Yeah.
And then Batman, who's obviously known him since he was a kid.
He's been there I mean, that's the funny part. Yeah. These guys have been, they know each other since the beginning. I mean, he was there, essentially.
Yeah, but one side doesn't realize who that is specifically. And the other is I know this guy is a good guy, and he'll do good for the...
Yeah. What a...
And here's another iconic scene.
No,
where are the drugs going?
I wouldn't be wanting... I don't want to eat my Whopper in the rain. That's all I'm going to say.
It's a falafel.
Falafel, whatever. I love the intensity of the scene. It's not like the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight, but this scene right here is terrifying in its own way.
This is Batman right here.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's funny when looking at the mask. The mask is actually kind of different. Or at least some areas of the mask is very different because the mask right here is a much more bigger piece than the one in Begins, because in the in Dark Knight, because in the one in Dark Knight, it's just a simple like thing that just covers just the head, but not the neck or anything like that, you know.
Oh yeah, they were probably just just trying to get the mask established.
But I do wonder, because you know what follows in this scene right here, because this guy's going to get killed off. Because I wonder how this scene would have played off had Harvey Dent been in it.
I don't know
if it was written for him. Obviously, you wouldn't have killed him off, but it probably would have been. That would have been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, here we've got the big setup for the massive climax of the film. Yeah, we've got Batman's character pretty much established, and now we're getting into the juicy part.
Oh, yeah. And then there's King Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Kill him, Batman! Kill him! He kills Sean Bean. Yeah, have you watched Game of Thrones? I'm just curious.
I've seen a few episodes.
Okay. I know, well, it's just like the show's like one of the most like just in your face type of shows, and I see this kid's face all the time from that show, and
yeah, I can't really stomach Game of Thrones too much. It's just too much.
It just feasts in its own sex and whatever else. It's
yeah.
If you notice kind of closely, you do see his mask at the window there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to lie, as a kid, I didn't know what he was doing in the bathroom. It wasn't until maybe 3 years ago, I was like, oh, that's what
now I get it.
Yeah. Cillian Murphy should have been like, I'm out of here. And instead he goes into the corner like, I'm just going to put this mask on. He should have been out of there. There you go. Now, I believe it or not, I did hear a rumor very early on when The Dark Knight was coming out that there was actually going to be a scene where Batman gets hallucinated with fear gas or some sort of fear gas, and that he was going to see the Joker as a demon. Actually, I don't know if you heard about that.
Nah.
And then he was going to see a manifestation of what the Joker is or represents or something like that. So, that would have been interesting, actually.
That would have been, kind of weird.
But I think this scene also establishes that he's not invincible quite yet.
Yeah. He's not quite coming to his own as Batman. This is his first real brush with the supervillain.
Do you think I've noticed in these films specifically, they always manage to kind of point out the weak spot. Each villain always manages to draw out the human flawed aspects of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Have you noticed that in these films specifically? Each one represents a certain weakness to his humanity.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a big part of what Batman, his character is he's a superhero, but he's also a man. And, he's a flawed man. And that's what they tried to do with the most recent Superman film. But you can't really do that too well with Superman.
Superman's just so different as a character from Batman, but we'll talk about that when we get to Man of Steel.
I mean, it's called The Dark Knight for a reason, so you can't just take Batman and try to apply superhuman stuff to him. He's a man.
Yeah. I want to ask you this, Ian, because at the time when this film came out, what was it? Superman Returns was about to come out, and a lot of people were really clamoring for a team-up film or just something of that nature. People, wanted to see like a Justice League film and all that stuff. And this was before The Dark Knight came out, years before The Dark Knight came out. But I think, in my opinion, this film, like prior to Dark Knight, I think there was, because Nolan had this framework that Batman in this particular film would be the only superhero in that universe, in this universe, so to speak. There wouldn't be any superpowers, beings, or anything like that. This movie, I think, kind of dabbles a little bit in those kind of, not necessarily fantastical elements, but they definitely do kind of draw upon the kind of lack of better term, like the hyperreal, well, not hyperrealism, but just kind of just lack of better term, just the comic booky aspects. They kind of these really extreme cases of technology, and I would probably even say hyperrealism, because there's a lot of stuff in this movie that that's kind of totally unbelievable, and that's what he's trying to go for. Realism to some degree. But I think this film, of the three, if there was that possibility, I think this film kind of was the one that kind of had that door possibly open, like that a Superman, and all that other stuff kind of possibly existing. Do you kind of get what I'm saying right there?
Kind of.
Like this is the film, like, of the three that you could potentially believe that there were more people out there, that there was like a Wonder Woman, or maybe even maybe potentially a Superman, because of this one and how it dabbles into some of the more unrealistic world aspects, I guess. It's kind of a difficult thing to say, but I mean, like, prior to seeing Dark Knight, could you have seen this film, like a Superman and all that other stuff kind of existing in this world? That's kind of a hard question, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how to answer that.
Yeah. I know it's kind of a weird question to ask, but
I mean, any of the major superhero characters, they kind of exist in their own world, and most of the time it's hinted at that there are other people involved, but I don't know. I think with this film, it's just kind of like this is just all about Gotham and Batman's personal struggle.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily referring to like Easter eggs or anything like that. I'm just saying that it kind of has that open interpretation to where you think, okay, well, I could potentially see this particular universe fitting into, like Superman or just something like that, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but I think when Dark Knight comes out, it really, that kind of officially kind of swiped the slate clean, and then just made you really believe, like, okay, they're really going for realism here. It's kind of impossible now, but anyway.
Well, I mean, after Burton's efforts, it's kind of,
it's the polar opposite from what Burton did.
Yeah, polar opposite. And Burton is like, it's almost like a fairy tale kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And with this, it is a little bit more realistic, in that it's just not just some dude who got superpowers one day or came from another planet. This is a guy that's been just super well trained, and has complete control of his senses, and he's just trying to do good by his city.
Mm-hmm. And there's another scene that just, I can just tell Katie, she's just so overpowered by Cillian Murphy in these scenes right here. You know what I actually heard? The reason why I actually heard that, this was actually during the time when Tom Cruise began to kind of go a little Little yeah, with the whole like jumping on the couch incident and all that stuff. Like he was attending the premieres like with Katie and all that stuff. And like he was doing like, from what I'm aware of, like he was driving his motorcycle on the red carpet on Christopher Nolan's film. And I actually heard, nothing's been confirmed, but I actually heard the reason why he didn't bring her back was because Chris was like so disgusted with how the tabloid stuff kind of overshadowed his film, which I never got that sense at all. But apparently, yeah, like that's like one of the possible reasons as to why he didn't bring her back, because just that whole courtship thing just kind of got out of hand from his point of view.
Too much drama.
Yeah. Now this is an amazing performance by Cillian Murphy right here. Just what I love is that he takes off the mask and he's instantly intrigued or just like in awe. There's just a childlike, demonic awe of the situation.
It's fascination.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not like fear. It's just an absolute, like,
it's a fascination.
It's a fascination, but it's just like an exhilarating fascination. Like, oh, he's here, you know. It's like, oh man. He kind of, you know, Joshua and I kind of talked about this, and he kind of thought that his performance reminded us of Peter Lorre's, Peter Lorre from M. I don't know if you've ever seen that Fritz Lang film. It's like a mystery thriller of a.
Oh right, goodness, another one. It's been forever since I've seen.
Yeah, that kind of like madness quality is there in Peter Lorre, but he tries to keep it within himself. But there are moments when it comes out, and it's like the eyes just show it. They show it, and that's what we were kind of compared his performance to. You know, it was kind of like that, but.
Oh yeah, just that whole manic, psycho.
Yeah.
You
could say some Anthony Perkins in there as well, maybe from like Psycho. But ugh.
This scene is crazy.
Oh yeah. I actually made an action figure of that. And I'm like, who would want to buy an action figure of like the chocolate-covered Batman? It looks like or Maltese Falcon-looking kind of Batman. It looks like that. Oh man,
I love that moment
when he smashes him.
Just the whole, he's not here right now. If you like to leave a message. It's like just the point where he's just completely disconnected with reality.
Yeah. Oh, man. I know you're not familiar with the character, but I actually thought that this character should have been Harvey Bullock. I know you've never read the comics, but there's like this kind of corrupt kind of cop who's kind of dwindling between good and bad, and Flass is kind of like that character. I know you've not seen the animated series, but that's a kind of a character that I kind of see Flass as. Can you believe that the whole night? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think Nolan, while paying some homage to the comic books and the TV series, probably just wanted to create his own film.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and take some creative liberties and all that stuff, which is something I'm not
artistic license. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like the villain's motivations in this film, well, like the plan, do you find it to be a bit ridiculous, in terms of like, vaporizing the water supply and just trying to and like that? It is kind of a little bit of an underwhelming, like means for an end, but I honestly think the strength of the movies kind of outweigh that whole the motivation.
I think it kind of works because when you're in a state of extreme panic, you don't think rationally, and when you can imagine, if you can imagine a whole city in just intense panic, I can imagine just a society just crumbling very quickly because of that. So it's subtle but effective.
Mm-hmm.
And while there are people who say, if they microwaved the water supply, they would have killed everyone in the city.
Yeah, I think
this is a movie. This isn't real life.
I can't believe they never use that. He never uses that device ever again.
Yeah, I know, right? I would have loved to see that again.
Just that image of him, films. Just like with the bats. Like, that whole image is never used again. Like, it's gone. Like after this, I think after this particular moment, that's it. You don't you don't see those bats ever again, or like.
Nope. No, it would have been cool to see that used again, and I love this particular shot of the inside of Arkham Asylum.
Oh yeah.
But excuse me. What?
And these are some of the most laziest, like insane. That's probably their flaw, is that they never worked or they were just lazy people, criminals.
I love that shot.
Oh,
I gotta get me one of those. Heck yes.
Oh man, it's a black tank. Oh man. I if there's one thing I miss not seeing in the theaters is this particular sequence. I mean, this would I'm sure it was pretty awesome.
It's like, what exactly do the cops think they can do against something like this?
Yeah. Well, what are they dealing with? It's like, what are we dealing with right here?
It's like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah. I can't wait for Gotham to actually, like, I know it's going to be, like, towards the end of the series, but I can't wait for them to kind of, like, play, like, some of these aspects of, like, the car, like, what is this? Just those first signs of, like, a Batman just emerging or something like that.
I love that brief shot of the guy looking at his coffee mug like,
did I drink something
in this thing?
That was a joke that I never quite got for a long time. Like, that was just kind of weirdly placed.
Yeah.
Now that guy looks so much like Alex Kendrick, that one cop right there. He does. Now is this the one where he goes on the roof? No, well, he's on that one. I don't know if a car with that much weight would have been able to endure on a roof like that.
Yeah, I don't know, but again, it's the movie.
It's the movie.
Who needs it to be realistic?
Now how this could have endured on a normal house? That's something else right there. See that?
Yeah, that's a suspension of disbelief that's a little too much.
It is a shame though that in Rises they didn't have they had the Bat-Pod sequence, but you didn't have like a sequence with like a new like Tumblr and the League of Shadows chasing Batman throughout Gotham. That actually would have been kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
My main problems with Rises is that I do feel like it has more missed opportunities in that film than the other two did. I look at these films, I look at 1 and 2, and I feel like in some odd ways they feel complete. They feel like like what they give me is enough. And when it came to Rises, I just felt like there was just so much more potential for them, and it kind of left me wanting more. As opposed to these films, they left me kind of content in the need to see more, if that makes any sense.
In a way, yes.
Now, did you see this in IMAX originally, or did you see this like in regular? Because this did actually have a very limited IMAX showing.
I don't think I saw this one. I think I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX.
Okay. I don't just kick her out of the car. You don't need her. There you go. Yeah.
And blazing on through everything.
The thing that gets to me is like, couldn't they easily follow him?
I know, right?
It's true.
It's not exactly like he's not leaving a trail.
No. I mean, if this is how Blake finds the cave, I mean, it's not that far from Gotham. Just got to go down 395 and then take a left and then just you find the waterfall.
Yeah, take a left at the demolished parking lot and go on through the destroyed fence.
Yeah, so like 9 years later, when John Blake finally becomes Batman, that's the specific directions that he gives Blake. It's like, yeah, go by the demolished toll buildings, and then it's demolished. But I'm like right past that. I'm on the left.
Look for the crazy tire tracks in the mud.
Yeah. They're 8 years old, but you could still find them.
What's up?
What's up?
How do you feel?
How do you feel? Oh, I feel fine. Who are you, handsome?
Tall, dark, and handsome. That's what I am. I'm Batman.
But now, right here is actually
all a dream.
Now, right here, I think he's using a very different voice. That's the voice I'm kind of referring to right there. That is, that's close to like Kevin Conroy's and even Michael Keaton's.
Well, it's closer to his own voice. It's kind of him in a way opening up as much as he can to Rachel.
Well, I actually kind of thought that they should have. That Bale should have kept that particular voice in the next two films, but it just disappeared. Unfortunately, that's something I kind of miss. That particular voice.
Yeah. What would you call that?
Darn good television. There you go. Now, now you kind of see right here, like the early signs of. Do you think Bruce Wayne is letting the Batman persona kind of overcome him, like that's being dictated here in this, or that's being kind of mentioned here in this piece of dialogue right here between him and Alfred, or do you feel like he kind of has control in terms of who Batman is and who he is as Bruce Wayne?
I think at this point, the character of Batman is kind of overriding the character of Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And he's become so absorbed into Batman that he's lost sight of Bruce Wayne. And, oddly enough, what happens later in the film kind of brings him back to Earth into the realization that, that he got to take on the mantle of Bruce Wayne as well.
Do you think that aspect is kind of explored in the next two films? Because I feel like in the second film, it's kind of... That aspect is kind of... Well, I'll say...
It's touched on.
It's touched on, but and then when it comes to the third film, I think it's actually kind of overly dwelt upon. Maybe, because I do feel like that movie... I feel like the arc in that film isn't really quite as well developed, but, we'll talk about that a little later. But here, I guess you kind of get the sense that he's struggling between the two identities / personalities of either Batman or Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
That image of him just like being strapped to the chair and all that stuff, it's very Hannibal Lecter right there.
Oh yeah.
Now, you know what I always thought? I actually thought when I first saw this, for some reason that Rutger Hauer's character was actually in cahoots with the League of Shadows, and that's how he quickly got rid of Lucius Fox. Because you remember that earlier on, he kind of mentions did you lose one? Because they were talking about that microwave emitter, and then he just says, "I'm firing you. You're fired," or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you think of it like what would make him want to do that? I guess is my question. Like what?
Well, it thought occurred to me that maybe he is in the League of Shadows, but then it's like, he's just a corrupt businessman looking for more power.
Or maybe it was because he viewed him as an ally. Well, think about it now. Maybe he's too close to Bruce Wayne. Maybe, I guess. Something.
Maybe he views Bruce Wayne as more of a threat than anything else.
The shocker of this movie.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun.
Well then.
Liam Neeson.
Mm-hmm. Aha.
But now I like how it's now finally come between. Well, here's the interesting thing. Roz, even in the Henry Ducard persona, he was still Roz. There was no change of demeanor. He wasn't hiding. Besides the fact of just his name, there was nothing really that he was hiding. Bruce Wayne is kind of dealing with the three persona aspect. One, the Batman aspect, the lonely Bruce Wayne that we see, and this one right here. I like how there's a massive difference between the two in terms of the kind of the secret identity aspect. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because at this point you see the final culmination of his struggle with who he is and his past with the League of Shadows, and he's making a complete fool of himself in public in order to save these people from what he knows is coming.
Yes, yeah. It's a sacrifice on his part, but people. Honestly, by the second film, people seem to have forgotten about what has happened and have seemed to embrace him as just a public madman to some degree, maybe.
Well, it kind of adds to the image in a way of him being just a spoiled rich brat.
Yeah, that's true. And it's kind of interesting because no one has ever brought up why would this, how can this, boy who's seen his own parents get killed, be like this, maybe he's just a soulless or heartless, individual. Maybe, I don't know, but that's kind of neither here nor there, but
Yeah.
But I one thing we haven't talked about is the music. We've not talked about the music at all.
I mean, it's it's a typical. It's one of those things Nolan pays attention to with, and he pays good attention to the soundtrack. And how could you not have a good soundtrack with a stellar
production like this?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But here's the weird thing about a great thing about his Hans Zimmer's score specifically. The Zimmer score, and most scores, a lot of scores do that. They bring forth the emotions of the scene, but here Zimmer brings the themes or the ideas into the music. You know what I mean? Like he brings those aspects out through here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he brings out the intensity in what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And does exactly what a soundtrack should do. It starts setting up the climax and the culmination of all these story arcs.
Yeah. Now, this scene right here, this little speech that he's giving Bruce Wayne. You are my greatest student. You were my greatest student. I took away your fear and I set you on a path. It should be you who should be standing on my side, saving the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is a line that honestly that stuck with me throughout the duration of this trilogy, and even to this day. I mean, but what I like about it is that, for obviously this guy has an heir, and maybe even potentially, he has an heir in Talia al Ghul. He has a flesh and blood heir, but my question, for a guy who has, a flesh and blood heir, that always kind of, this scene right here makes me kind of wonder, like, what was the state of their relationship, for him to look up, what was it in Bruce that he saw above his own child? You know what I mean? What was he seeing in him that Talia didn't have? Because those are strong words, in my opinion, for somebody that has an heir.
Well, I mean, maybe he viewed Bruce Wayne as his successor in the League of Shadows.
More so than Talia?
More so than Talia. Like, and maybe that's a big part of what influenced Talia to do what she did. And that kind of vengeance / finish what her father started. And so, for both of them, for Ra's al Ghul and for Bruce Wayne, it's kind of, one thought he had a father figure, the other thought he had a son figure and an heir. And so that, that whole thing being dashed to pieces influences both of them to what we have now.
Yeah, but I do feel like that was another missed opportunity with Rises, was that they could have bring that whole aspect of and Rises is thematically kind of about heirs and the legacy of one's own work, but I do feel like they could have brought up a little bit more with that, specifically between Talia and Bruce. Because she's just introduced in that film, and then it's just like, okay, yeah, we're moving. I mean, honestly, I don't think the Talia al Ghul character is that well developed in that film, but I just felt like they could have actually maybe explored, like, there was a jealousy, there was, like, Roz did resent her for whatever personal reasons, and just,
well, that may not so much he resented her, the fact that maybe it just wasn't there, and then he found Bruce Wayne and was like, oh man, I have a man who can carry on my work and do what I do. Yeah, when I'm done.
When I'm done, yeah.
Yeah.
again, kind of missed opportunities, but that's
Well, there's a bit of that in Rises.
so. It's I mean that's true, but again, like the theme of legacy, I feel like it's there, but it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's not as thoroughly explored as I would have liked for it to have been. Maybe, but
Yeah.
Now this is another line that I've always kind of felt like was kind of out the window by film 3 was, why, he asks him, Bruce asked him, so you haven't given up on me. And he says, never. My question is, what is it that changes his mind between this particular moment and when he leaves Bruce Wayne from Wayne Manor? What particularly changes his mind? You remember in Rises, he decides to walk away from Bruce Wayne.
I think it kind of felt like maybe Bruce had given up, that it was too much. I don't know.
Oh, we just skipped the part where she says, "Officer, I'm a Gotham district attorney. Let me pass." Oh my gosh, it's like I can't say it, but two, what a it's a juvenile talking down to a police officer, like, teenager, honey, you need to go home right now. I mean, I gotta ask you, if you were Chris, would you have brought Katie Holmes back for the sake of continuity, or would you have just done the exact same thing, like just gotten somebody else?
I don't know. I maybe for the sake of consistency, yes.
I'll tell you one thing: if they had kept her and killed her off in Dark Knight, like in that moment when the warehouse explodes, you would have heard a lot of cheering at that moment, as opposed to like shocks. Now, as a comic book movie, where does this kind of rank for you in terms of your favorites, all-time favorites?
That's a tough one.
I'd probably put it in my top 10, actually, like alongside the second film, the first two Spider-Man movies, the first two X-Men, and some of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, I guess it would definitely rank in my top 10.
But it's interesting when looking back at this film, when this film came out, especially because the comic book thing, well, you just had you had the Spider-Man movies, you had the X-Men movies, but in between those films and Batman Begins, you had a lot of bad comic book movies. You had, like, what was it, The Punisher, you had the Fantastic Four films coming out.
I don't know, The Punisher wasn't that bad.
The Thomas Jane one? I've not seen that one, actually. I think that would have been it. Yeah, at that point.
It was intense.
Yeah. I just know that it's not highly regarded amongst the fans as a good one, but you fight.
Fans stuff it. I thought it was a good introduction to the character. It was the Punisher.
Yeah. But specifically with this film, it really brought, like, not just with comic movies, but just other films in general. Like, a lot of people were noticing this. You can take something seriously and not make it feel goofy or campy. Like, people like this. I think without this film, you wouldn't have had a movie like Casino Royale, and maybe to some degree the first. Ooh, wow. Those are some intense moments right there, or even like the first Star Trek movie, because it seems like a lot of these fresh, like, reboots, so to speak. Well, this movie kind of started the whole reboot, craze. You remember?
Oh yeah. And you had, leading up to this, you had Hulk, which was, a good attempt aesthetically at being a comic book film, but failed miserably in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this movie, Batman Begins, really reestablished the comic book genre as legit.
Yeah, but because it was funny because we were talking when we did the Avengers commentary. What was his? Joshua mentioned something about an emo phase. I don't know what he is specifically referring to. The thing was just that there was just between this film and between this film and even like up until the Avengers, with the exception of like the Dark Knight, you just had and Iron Man and the first phase of Marvel, you had just a lot of bad comic book movies. That was the problem at that. I don't know what the emo specifically he was referring to. Do you remember that? Do you remember when we were talking about that in the Avengers commentary?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he was referring to either, but I don't know. I think we got more comfortable with comic book films as being more true and realistic to an extent with what the original comic books were.
Yeah. But then I think the Marvel films kind of reintroduce it to that escapism aspect, I think, with like the fantasy elements. While the Dark Knight trilogy while the Dark Knight trilogy was more so, let's go back, let's take you back to this world where it could happen, it could happen. Marvel was more about Marvel was more so about the let's offer you escapism.
Yeah.
So I always improvise, like the Three Amigos line right here. It's like, whenever there is injustice, you will find the Three Amigos.
Batman. Oh, I mean, yeah. I think I thought the same thing when I first saw it.
The Three Amigos, that's an awesome movie, dude.
Love that film, man. Love it. Ra's al Ghul knows something's up.
We never see the turtle-looking League of Shadow members ever again. Like we never see them in Rises. Like when we get to Rises, it's all the fatigued uniforms. We never see like the dark clothed, Snake Eye looking ninjas again. This is the only time we see the League of Shadow ninjas.
Oh, they gotta blend in, right?
Yeah.
And that this is a little too close to the Fist, the appearance of the Fist from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, well, actually, when watching that fight scene right there, the thing that actually came to mind was the Bourne movies. These movies are the fights, at least in this one, I think, is highly inspired by that kind of fast cutting, Bourne style.
Yeah, it's all about the quick cuts.
But the movement too. The movement is also, like really fast paced and.
Well, the Bourne movies, especially first two, were all about the shaky cam.
Yeah, well, for that
you can't really see what's going on because the camera's shaking so stinking much.
Yeah.
And you want movement, but not so much that the viewer just simply can't figure out what's going on.
I am shocked from what I've heard about the suit, it was the most limited in terms of the movements, but from what they are able to do, they did a fantastic job of giving it a sense of agility.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the editing. But yeah, like Christian Bale really couldn't move his head.
No, it was very limited. It was very limited.
But the way it looked kind of gave off that feeling.
Now okay, you have to give us exposition heavy right there. Tell Hand Fist like the whole city is gonna blow up with water.
It's gonna blow.
We know that, you idiot. By the way, Commissioner Gordon probably wrote in his diary that night, by the way, had a fun time driving the tumbler.
Dear diary, today I rode Batman's vehicle. It was awesome.
This is great. This is great right here. Just the close-ups on their faces, and then it just...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That moving in, the dolly shot. Almost Hitchcock-esque, but not quite.
Yeah. I just love this fight. It's just like brawls, and they're just... It's really close. Well, and two, it's close quarters, too, so they have... So they're able to use the environment and... And you really see a lot of the Taken Liam Neeson in this particular fight. I will find
a very
you.
particular set of skills.
I will find you. Well, I have found you, and I will hurt you.
I love Oldman's expressions there. It's
I love this. Like, the black guy's like a Nasser.
What's going on?
Now, who do you think is genuinely superior in this fight? Is it Roz or is it Batman in this fight?
I don't know. I mean, Roz has the benefit of experience and agility. Like, he can move a lot more than Batman can in that costume.
Like, you're like a canned tuna. You're a canned tuna in a cape. That's why you cannot fight injustice in this. Now, this has caused some debate amongst the fans as to whether or not he really kills Roz, or if it was a kill, was it a justified kill?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have no problem with this because, one, he doesn't kill him, but he does set him on the course. I don't know. I think this is one of the scenes where I think Nolan tries to go for ambiguity in an interesting way. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things that, like, Ra's al Ghul could have gotten off the train. But then he just closes his eyes and lets it happen.
Maybe he's trying to let the Force do its work, maybe.
But
yeah, I feel like I don't think Batman kills him per se. I don't think he does. Does he lead him on that course to his death? Yes. Actually, this is how we put it. It's actually kind of viewed as a war killing in more ways than one. Actually,
yeah, it's not purposeful, but
it is. But it is kind of set up. Yeah. In a kind of indirectly or unintentionally set forth in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, can you believe we're actually almost done with Batman Begins?
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Oh, wow. You're out of a job, Rutger Hauer. And I don't know how much of this is in the comics or something like that, but I loved that Lucius Fox kind of got the upper hand, or he was kind of like the vengeful kind of quote saying like, "Didn't you get the memo? I'm your new boss or something like that.
That's a great line.
What is, obviously the sequel is kind of considered by many the one of the best films, the best film of the entire trilogy, if not of all time. But in terms of the trilogy, where do you put this in the span of the three films that Nolan did? Where do you place it?
Like in terms of how well it's done?
Yeah, just ranking and just what does it mean to you personally? I guess is a question.
I guess in terms of ranking it, it'd be second.
Okay,
with The Dark Knight being first.
Okay, but also what is it about this film that kind of what does it mean to you personally? Just both as a movie fan, specifically. I mean, does it? Is it something that you kind of go to a lot? I mean, is it something that really kind of makes you sit down and kind of think of some interesting ideas? I mean, has it inspired you in your creative pursuits in filmmaking?
I view this as just kind of a sit back and enjoy some action kind of film.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
It's not just. There isn't really any mind-blowing cinematography or special effects. It's just a cool superhero film.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's an interesting. I like that word that you use, fluff. By the way, but go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, if I do anything in the future with film, I probably wouldn't look to this for any major inspiration unless it were an action film.
Yeah.
I think Dark Knight is really where I would. If that were the case,
yeah.
I'd look to that film because this film is good. I like this film.
Yes, it is a great film.
It's a great film, and it really sets up the Batman franchise very well, and really made comic book films cool again.
Mm-hmm.
But Dark Knight is really the pinnacle.
Yeah. Yeah, but I liked how you use that word fluff. Dark Knight is more so the broader themes of corruption, evil. The identity between a hero and vigilantism or corruption. All these really interesting meaty ideas, and Batman Begins has those ideas, but I think the packaging is much more fluffier in an interesting way. It's still a great film, and I still place this as one of my favorite films of all time. I mean, it just does so much, just so well. But yeah, I still, man, I still just really, I love returning to this film actually, because of the three, it's actually the most Batman pure. It's the most Batman filled, I would say, of the three. More so than the other two. I mean, you have Batman in the other ones, but this one just really. I think of the three, it's the most straight up Batman film of the bunch.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And. But yeah, the Batman theme that Hans goes for here, it's good. It's very good, but I think the Danny Elfman piece is far more iconic than this one. Here, it's just like the dun dun, those really too long, drawn out notes right there.
It's all about the brass, man.
If you're actually in the Dark Knight soundtrack, you can hear just a little bit of the Danny Elfman score. Just a little bit. And I won't reveal where that's at. You got to find it for yourself, Ian.
We have to have some kind of homage to Elfman.
Yeah. Actually, there's one scene in the Dark Knight that I kind of feel homages Batman 89, but I'll talk about that a little later when we get to that. But here it is. We're setting it up, the sequel. Escalation. Things are going to get worse now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people went nuts.
Oh, we can't do it. I'm Batman.
Actually, a lot of people thought that, oh, now we got to go watch Batman 89 now. That's what people thought, actually. Do you remember that? People,
Yep.
Yeah. People.
It's like, no, that's not a good idea.
I was one of those. I was like, oh, now I got to go watch the Batman 89 film now. Anyway, Batman Begins. Great film, great ending, and like when you saw the Joker card, like immediately, who did you think of as like, oh man, like great film, but which, did you think, were there like a lot of actors coming to your mind who you thought could actually play the Joker in this particular universe?
I don't think I was sure who to think of at that point. I think Ledger had been hinted at.
He was hinted at very early, like 2006, I believe.
Yeah. So at that point, it was like, I wonder what they're going to do with it. I think I was just more excited about them bringing the Joker back, especially with the way this film had gone.
Yeah.
Like, now that it was a serious take on a serious character, I was like, oh, wow.
What?
Like, I cannot wait to see what Nolan does with the Joker.
Yeah, I mean, this movie just wonderfully sets up that feel, that feel, and just this real world, and how that particular character could work, and that was just exciting. I mean, same here for me. I was like, what is that going to be like? Anyway, Ian, great film. This is just
I agree.
A great film. I'm excited about doing the next two films and eventually Man of Steel. So
yeah.
So anyway, folks, that's it for the first part of our Batman v Superman specials. This is the Batman Begins commentary. So Ian, I thank you again for joining me tonight, and it's been a lot of fun.
Always.
Yeah, I only wish that Joshua and Ben could have joined us, because they chickened out.
The nerve of some people being busy and stuff.
Yeah, that's, I don't buy any of that stuff. But anyway, folks, we thank you very much for joining us tonight. This has been a treat. You can find more of our episodes on Facebook and on iTunes, and also please download and also leave us a review on iTunes. We can definitely use some more. And Ian, why don't you plug away some of your stuff? You got anything you wanna say?
Mainly Facebook. Still haven't gotten my website back up yet. I need to work on that at some point when I have this thing called free time everyone keeps talking about. But look me up on Facebook, specifically Ian M. I'm gonna try to work on putting some of my personal music and stuff up there. I've got my YouTube channel. Look for Ian Maffett. I've got some music videos and stuff I've put together up there. And then I've got a blog on Tumblr, Ian Speaks. So all of that can be accessed through Facebook. So find me on Facebook and you'll be able to find most of that stuff.
Ian Speaks. What did you put, like, for Ian Speaks, did you put the tagline, I know, right? You should use that.
Yeah, but I probably should have.
Yeah, there you go. You should. You need to do that. Anyway, folks, we'll catch you next week with The Dark Knight. So take... Dun, 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 dun. So good night, everybody, and cheers.
Buenos noches.